Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane. It's Superman.
Superman.
Dun, 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 dun.
Star Wars.
Yeah. Hey guys, movies and TVs on the ball here. Steve-O coming at you, and with me as always is my partner in crime.
Jay.
And this is sort of a sequel to our last video that Jay and I did, which was on
The
the
death of
Death of
Superman.
Superman Blu-ray
The
or DVD
comics.
comics. And so we're looking at the, I think
2007.
2007
Yeah.
animated film Superman Doomsday,
Right.
which when I thought of it, I thought it was going to be more, it was going to basically be the Death of Superman comic in animated form.
Right.
But they kind of added a little bit more of a twist to it if you think about it.
Yeah, they sort of go beyond that issue, like to where he, you know, some spoilers, comes back and like sort of the time after when he dies and sort of the time period during then.
Yeah. So, this one was it starred I think the voice
Adam
of Adam
Baldwin.
Baldwin as Superman.
Right.
And who was the one that did Lex Luthor?
I can't remember who.
Uh,
It was not the animated series voice. I
it's
think.
not the animated series voice actor. The voice of Superman was Adam Baldwin,
Right.
who you know from films such as The Patriot, Independence Day, and he was also in Full Metal Jacket. He's recently been in American Underdog and The Kid. Um, then you had the voice of Lex Luthor, or Anne Heche is the voice of Lois Lane. You know Anne Heche from such films such as 6 Days, 7 Nights and John Q. And then you have James Marston as Lex Luthor. Now, Marsters is best known as Spike in
Okay.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And he was also he played Brainiac in an episode of Smallville.
Okay. Gotcha.
And and I actually met him at Fanboy one year.
Gotcha.
So that's how I know him. And think, then you had Ray Wise as Perry White, who you know from, uh, he was in Twin Peaks
Oh yeah. Okay.
and RoboCop.
Gotcha.
And he was also, and then you had Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, as a robot.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then you had, I think that's pretty much the big names
Right.
that were there. And then, of course, Kevin Smith shows up. But, I mean, they had a pretty good cast for who they
Yeah.
had. But so this one really starts off with a group of sailors.
It starts with like sort of Lex Luthor has like a plan doing like some like deep
L-
mining stuff, and
Lex,
they
yeah,
find the spaceship.
they're doing some deep mining stuff,
Right.
and they find a spaceship. And in the spaceship, it's um,
Doomsday.
it's Doomsday's grave or
It's sort of like we find out it's sort of like a prison.
Doomsday's prison,
Right.
and um, Doomsday basically, and so they break, kind of break him out,
Right.
and then they kind of Doomsday shows up
Right.
into Metropolis, and it pretty much tells the story of Death of Superman
Right.
as the way the comics
Yeah.
do
A
it,
bit like an accelerated pace, but yeah, it's pretty much the same. He sort of breaks out and just sort of starts killing
killing everybody,
everything.
everything, and Superman shows up,
Right.
and we see sort of the fight between Superman and
Doomsday.
Doomsday,
Right.
and I was to see it in animated form. It was really, I thought they did pretty good.
Right.
I mean, I liked they show like Dooms. I mean, we can see, in the comics when we did the review of the Superman Doomsday,
Right.
the comics really showed how tough Doomsday is.
Right.
But this one really did a really good job of showing how, the way Doomsday was big and
Right.
he had this long hair and the spikes kind of came out. And he kind of already came, he didn't really sort of, in the comics,
He sort of
he
evolves.
he evolved. And
Right.
this one, it's the other thing too is, you've got a comic that's,
Oh,
10 page, 17 pages or something, and then you've got, but in the animated film, what you think that was, what, an hour and
yeah, maybe like an hour and
20 minutes or
20
something?
minutes. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
less. Yeah.
a little less than that. So you kind of have to
Yeah, because they
kind of
tell a
speed
lot more of
around.
the story than just
Yeah,
the fight with
fight with
Doomsday.
Doomsday. Um, so we'll go through. So I guess the itty bitty stuff, the new stuff that they added into this this the film version of Superman Doomsday is Lex Luthor Lex Luthor shows up and he ends up stealing the body of
Superman, and we sort of find out like at first we think, oh, Superman's come back,
yeah,
but he's like he's not the same.
same.
Yeah.
And he can kind of, and you kind of can tell because he's got long hair.
Well, this is before
Oh,
like because he comes back and he like doesn't he seems not to know about Lois's Lane's like their relationship.
relationship.
Right.
And in this one, Lois Lane and Superman, I think, know each other. I mean, I know they know each other, but she knows his secret identity.
Yeah, I think.
I think in this one, because I know
Yeah,
in
yeah.
I know in the Death of Superman comic, it's already, I think, because
It's already
this came
established.
out. I think this came out right after the comics revealed that Superman was Lois Lane. I
Oh,
mean,
gotcha.
Superman was, or
Right.
Lois Lane finds out that Clark Kent is Superman.
Right. And this one, I think Lois knows that he's Clark Kent,
Kent,
but
but
he hasn't told her.
hasn't told her
Yeah. So he's still sort of keeping that a secret
secret.
from
Yeah.
her.
Um, I liked kind of what they did. I think that the chemistry between Superman, Clark Kent in this version
Right.
is really strong.
Yeah.
Um, and Lois, I think, has a lot more. What do you think of Lois Lane? I guess we'll go. Let's go in this
Yeah.
plot first, and then we'll
Okay.
kind of
Yeah. Yeah. We
discuss
can go into more
more
details
detail.
when I talk about.
Yeah. So basically, um, Superman or Clark Kent and Lois Lane are still working at the Daily Planet. We have Perry White, who still is like, Clark, you need to go. Where's Clark going to? And
Right.
Clark's taking some time off and going to
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan
Right.
to do some
War
war reserve
reporting. Yeah.
reporting. And Clark, and then so that sort of shows Clark is sort of out of the picture a little bit because it's more the story kind of the film focuses more on Lois Lane and
Right.
Jimmy Olsen,
Right.
and Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane are kind of doing their own sort of like investigative reporting.
Yeah.
Like I can't. Do you remember what the investigative reporter was?
Well, like sort of like there's a whole beat where sort of after Superman dies, Jimmy sort of quits and becomes like a paparazzi.
Paparazzi
Right. But
thing.
then Lois is able to.
So wait, hold on.
Yeah.
So the going to Afghanistan. That's the cover for
Right. That was the cover.
Superman
Yeah, that was a cover
Death.
for. Well, no, it sort of yeah, but it also was a cover for him taking some
Taking
vacation.
some vacation time,
Right.
and so uh, Jimmy Olsen is a. I like how Jimmy Olsen was in Paparazzi.
Right.
I thought that was kind of a cool, like, kind of showing him kind of he's got some skills. And Lois Lane is like, "Well, we want you back, Jimmy. I need you." And he's
Right.
like, and he's like, "I'm making good money doing this, but it's not ethical." She's like, "It's not ethical,"
Right.
kind of thing. And um, I kind of and I like you can. I think this film really shows the relationship between Jimmy and I mean, you can kind of see how Jimmy and Lois sort of react to each other.
Right, and then to Superman's death, sort of. Yeah.
Superman's death, and I think Lois is probably the most strongest
Right.
to kind of, or she's dealing with the death, or I guess death the most.
Yeah, but I almost could argue that Lex Luthor is also feeling it. You know how he was so upset that he just sort of died randomly,
Yeah,
like he
and
didn't get a chance to kill
yeah,
himself.
but I think that's the thing. I think Lex looks at it as, I mean, it is that sort of like Lex is always going to be Superman's biggest foe in the comics and
Right.
thing. And I mean, it kind of reminds me of that's you ever see the Lego Batman movie?
Yeah.
You know that scene where Joker says, I'm your biggest villain," and he's like, and Batman says, "Well, actually, you're not. I've got a couple other people that are like, well, that's kind of how I
Right.
looked at like this one. Lex was, the way Lex is, in this one, and then Lex sort of decides to, now that Superman's gone, I think Lex has got Superman's DNA,
Yeah.
or
He makes a clone.
he's made a clone of
Right.
Superman, and it does have the clones in sort of a that sort of like water tank kind of
Right.
thing,
Because then he tries to make a whole army of
and he's
clones.
making a clone army, and then Lois sort of does some research
Right.
and does some snooping around and finds that there's uh clone like bunch of Superman clones,
Right.
and Lois breaks one of them.
Well, then,
Oh,
it's like while this is all happening, the clone Superman has sort of gone off programming where he's like protecting people, but like in a super authoritarian way.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
like
That's right.
starting to like kill, like he kills the
Look,
Toy Man.
the kills the Toy Man. The Toy Man. I mean, I've seen him through Smallville in a couple
Uh,
episodes of Smallville, but he's kind of wild, kind of creepy.
yeah,
You know, what's your thoughts on the Toy Man?
yeah, he's always creepy
He's
because he
always
was
been
like
creepy in a
making
lot
like
of.
creepy toys and stuff. To
Okay.
yeah,
Um. So he does. So, Clone Superman goes to um Toyman, and Toyman is he's got this trap. He's got a bunch of no. He's got a school bus
right,
full of kids, and they're teetering off a ledge,
right.
and like on like a bridge, or was it
There's like a parking garage
in a
or something.
parking garage? Right, parking garage. And Toyman's like, I've got them. Superman. Won't have to do any. He starts monologuing and doing this kind of thing.
Right.
They're like, "Save me, save me!" And then Superman shows up, and I guess I can't, does he beats the hell out of.
He he just sort of like brings him into police
Oh,
custody,
he brings him in the
and then it's
police.
later that he learns that he had actually killed one of the children, and that's when he sort of
Oh,
snaps.
snap! So
Yeah,
so Toyman kills one of his children, and Superman snaps and basically tries to beats the hell out
or
of
he like just drops him from
drops.
yeah from
Oh, he drops
like a
Toyman
thousand
off
feet up.
to 1,000 feet up. Yeah. Um, and then, and I like. I mean, Toyman. I mean, he's such a in this one. He's such a secondary character. Is he more prevalent in the animated
He
show?
shows up a couple times, but uh,
He's
he's never like like a super
he's not really that important. I mean, not
yeah
important, but he's not. He's very much a secondary
somewhat yeah
villain. Like, so so he ends up uh killing Toyman, or
yeah he kills Toy
Toyman,
Man, and then he sort of like resists arrest, saying he knows best where Metropolis.
and he kind of and I he become and I kind of think that Superman, as the evil clone Superman,
Right.
kind of says, you know, it's kind of the black suit Spider-Man, don't you think?
Yeah.
And at least in the comics and in Spider-Man 3, where it's like with great power comes great responsibility, and you take the responsibility out of the great power kind of thing. Because I looked at the that, I mean, that kind of how I kind of that's how I saw this Superman was like you're right, authoritarian, and he kind of really
like ruthless and like
ruthless, and I saw what was I guess I saw him be a lot more dark,
yeah, because he's like tells the
darker.
old lady like you're wasting my time, like
Yeah,
not taking care of your
these
cat.
cats. Yeah,
Like they got
well,
stuck in
which
a tree.
which is kind of a nice homage to the Superman movie
Uh,
where Christopher Reeve's Superman gets that little girl's cat out of the tree,
you're right.
and it's a lot. It's kind of a nice
Like a nice scene. Yeah,
scene homage to it. Homage, not
yeah,
a homage. Homage to it, which I thought was kind of, but he's like kind of a dick
yeah.
about it.
Like you're sort of nervous he's gonna like kill the cat.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So anyway, so evil Superman or Black Suit Superman's flying around, and
I guess it sort of culminate like while all this is happening, we find out that the Superman's a robot, steals his body
still
from
is
Lex Luthor,
Luthor. So
and like
so
he's
Lex
not
Luthor
actually
has Superman's body that
right.
he's made a clone of that's
That
made
he
it evil
monologues
that he
to.
monologues to.
Right.
And then the robot, which I guess is he in the comics or do you
Yeah. In the comics, I think they actually have like a there's a couple different versions of like the Superman that come back.
Superman
Like Metallo comes back, and then
Metallo?
like they have like
I know
robots,
Metallo.
and then they who's Steel, the guy with the hammer.
That's Steel.
Yeah, I think he also sort of takes up the role as Mantle and
Mantle
Superman.
Superman. Okay. He's not Shaquille O'Neal as he was in
Okay.
Steel. Um, but I guess it was kind of interesting seeing a robot in the animated thing because in the comics, Death of Superman, I don't think there's a robot
No, I think it comes later on, like
in the thing,
yeah,
but
later issues.
later issues. But I kind of so he's in this sort of like um tube
Healing tank.
healing tank,
Yeah,
and Lois was so there's two tanks. There's Lex Luthor has
like a clone
a
army.
clone army of Supermen
Right.
in tanks, and they all have their long hair. And then there's like the OG Superman,
In the
who's in the
Fortress of
Fortress
Solitude.
of Solitude,
Right.
that's in a tank, and is basically he's in like a healing suit, like chamber,
Right.
and it's like he's only up to like
I
94%
think
or
that was like 67. Yeah.
67%. So he's up to about 67%. And Lois Lane comes and says we need to break them out now, or
No, it just sort of eventually the Superman like they sort of like the when he like throws he like tries to kill Lex Luthor.
oh
And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
when like the
So
whole army
so the
comes.
evil Superman
Right.
that Lex Luthor is made goes to talk, basically goes to his creator,
Uh,
and the evil Superman tries to kill off his creator.
right. Because he
Uh,
like there's a pretty cool scene where he like Lex had put like a kryptonite bomb inside of his brain, and so he like uses his like X-ray vision and laser vision to cut it out.
right, right, right.
Right.
Um, and I thought that was kind of a cool scene. And then I liked how, and I liked Lex's look. He gotta have like kind of the turtleneck and white. He's kind of wore white.
Right. I liked how I sort of missed the voice actor from the animated series, but I liked how ruthless because he kills like his assistant who's like from like the mining accident who's like, did you cover up our tracks? He's
Yeah,
like, good, and then he just shoots her.
yeah. I mean that's something that I don't really see. I haven't watched a lot of Superman the animated series,
Uh,
but he didn't seem like he's not. I think he's got a he Lex Luthor has to have kind of a fine line between him as an evil genius and psychotic. His psychotic can't be too extreme because
right,
then he's the Joker.
right. You're right. Yeah,
That's kind of, but I kind of like that he's a little bit more, you know,
yeah. They're
the
definitely pushing the darker side, like
dark side.
PG,
Yeah,
the rating.
PG-13.
Is this? I think this is PG, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Lex, or where was I?
Sort of Lex gets sort of we don't know if like he might be dead, so the whole like like the military starts attacking Superman.
Super, yes. And so we got the military show up, and we see like all these soldiers and these tanks come in, and they start shooting, shoo, shoo, a bunch of like grenades and tanks are shooting
Right.
things, and Superman, and of course
Lasers them.
lasers them. No, a suit like the dust settles, and Superman's like, you know,
Superman. Yeah.
it dusts it off, and then he's like, okay, it's my turn, and then takes the laser, he lasers his, you said laser,
Yeah. He's like,
uses his heat vision,
yeah. Heat vision
and he
tanks.
like destroys the entire like tanks and stuff, which I would really like to see that take, see how that would look live action wise.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Expensive shot.
expensive shot, yeah.
Yeah.
We only got one. Um, so then
Real Superman shows up to
so
sort of fight him at this point.
and real Superman shows up, and we got to talk about the costume
Uh,
real quick. So the clone Superman's wearing the blue, classic blue and red and yellow.
right.
And then which we talked about Death of Superman, and I think when they resurrected him in the comics, they gave him the black suits, Superman.
Right. And this one they call it the solar suit to help him collect
Solar.
solar radiation.
So this is the solar suit in this version, and it's black with a
The silver
silver
hair.
S, and he's got the long
Right. Fabio
Bobby
hair.
O'Hare,
Yeah.
which I think is what he has in when he was resurrected
I
in the
think so. Yeah.
comics.
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, this is super, and I kind of like that so he and clone Superman and real Superman are about to fight, but I kind of like that they did that versus just like, oh, you gotta, him being like evil, and it's, oh, you gotta snap out of it. I like the clone idea
Right.
to have
Well,
like
it's not like
Superman
he's just
versus
like
Superman.
wants to protect Metropolis, but like in a extreme way.
Yeah, and I kind of and Superman's kind of, and I like the fact that he's wearing blue and yellow, and the other one's wearing black, and there's sort of a fight between the two of them,
Right.
which is kind of I what you really saw with um kind of the Venom Spider-Man kind of thing, that
Right.
sort of thing. So they duke it out, and they like throw each other through buildings and
Right.
stuff like that. And then Superman pretty much, or blue suit Superman,
Is winning
is
until
winning
Lois Lane goes and grabs a kryptonite gun.
kryptonite gun and shoots the wrong.
No, he shoots the clone. She
She
shoots
shoots
the right
he
one.
shoots the black suit Superman.
No, no, the clone one.
So the clone Superman's got the
The traditional.
traditional stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's right, that's right. So she shoots the clone Superman,
Right.
and he falls down.
Right. And eventually the kryptonite canister gets stuck to him, and then Superman shoots that with his laser vision, and that's
Laser vision
sort of
and
like
the
the kryptonite gas gets him.
gas, and then clone Superman dies.
Yeah, or
Or
it looked like he dies.
yeah,
Yeah, we're not 100% sure.
and then the crowd cheers,
Right,
and everyone's like, "Hooray, Superman!"
right.
And everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor goes to jail,
Well,
or
no,
no,
we just see Lex Luthor sort of like on like a he's like in the hospital bed in his like skyscraper, like he
skyscraper.
survived being
Yeah.
thrown.
So and I thought it. So I guess that's sort of the plot of Superman Doomsday. Jay, what? Let's kind of dive into it
Okay.
because
What were
um,
some of your favorite parts of
well,
it?
I liked the guy I liked Lex Luthor's. I thought he was a pretty good
No,
version of Lex
yeah, I
Luthor.
liked how ruthless he
He
was.
was ruthless, and he wasn't kind of like cackling like Gene Hackman or anything like that. He did kind of remind me of kind of the or um animated Superman or animated Lex Luthor from the animated show. Like, I mean, I
Right.
know it's the same one. It's not the same one, but he has the same mannerisms
Yeah,
that he
they're
was.
close. Yeah,
Close. I liked Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. I thought they had a really good
yeah.
character. Like they have a really good dynamic. I think in a lot of the
I feel like this is like the most depth I've seen Jimmy. They give
yeah,
Jimmy
they give
Olsen.
Jimmy
A lot of
Olsen.
times he's just sort of like a
Well, and I like the fact
sidekick.
that Jimmy Olsen in this one, once he like can't go on, taking photos of the planet,
Uh,
he becomes a paparazzi
right,
guy, which I thought was kind of, or was kind of a cool kind of like wink.
right,
I like the fact that they didn't just do the death of Superman, like panel to panel.
right.
They really kind of gave it a little bit more breath. They really kind of gave more breath to it. Now I don't know if this is a sequel to Death of Superman. If there's like a
I think
death
like I think we said there's like a standalone.
standalone.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, I did like Doomsday's look. I like the
okay,
way it looked. I mean, the fact that he kind of had the long hair
right,
and the spikes and stuff. Um, but I also liked the um Clark. Clark and I mean, they did a really good job of Clark and Lois's relationship.
right.
That really worked its way to it. But what about you? What was your thoughts on
I guess I sort of wasn't the biggest fan of the Doomsday just because they didn't really show what I feel like is like classic Doomsday is him sort of like adapting to different
the different
attacks and
attacks and stuff?
yeah.
I mean, I feel like they do. Or I mean, did you think that they kind of? I kind of when I was watching it, did you think they kind of in the same way they did throw it in to Superman Dawn of Justice or Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice? They just threw Doomsday in there.
No, I think it's sort of like it was sort of the minor. It was just sort of like they needed to get that part over with to get to like the more interesting
Good
stuff with the
stuff.
clone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that clone stuff was kind of really good. Um, I liked, yeah. Now I did like I like the fact that Lois Lane and Lex Luthor, or not Lex Luthor, and Clark Kent were in a relationship together.
right,
That kind of worked really good. That worked really well with sort of their dynamics and her knowing that the cat's out of the bag versus like, oh, Superman, what are you doing here? I mean,
right,
she's probably has to say like, it says say Clark, if she's like with a public place, she's like, oh, thank you, Superman.
right.
You um, what was I liked I mean, what was anything you disliked about it? Cause
I guess wasn't the biggest fan of the Doomsday. Design like he's I don't know could have added a little bit more depth there.
yeah, yeah, I could see that. Like I could see that Doomsday just I mean, he looked better than he looked in Batman v Superman.
Right,
I mean, he didn't look like a troll. I mean, he had like spikes and stuff. But yes, I did feel like that was kind of, what they really gave us was kind of like, I'm Doomsday, let me destroy Superman
right,
and I think the relationship between Perry White and Lois Lane is pretty strong relationship.
right.
Lex Luthor is. Did you feel like Lex Luthor was sort of a secondary villain to? Do you think, or I felt like he was a
No, I
good
thought he was good.
first
Yeah,
act,
yeah,
and then since they brought clone Superman in,
right.
it became sort of the clone Superman versus Superman,
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
fight. Um, I guess anything else you
Uh,
liked or disliked or
I think
I mean, like I enjoyed the fact
I
that
enjoyed the scene where Lois Lane goes to Martha and they both sort of like are sad about
Superman,
Superman's death.
which kind of brings kind of this, they kind of played that with Justice League a little bit,
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I forgot
kind
about
of
that scene. Yeah,
like that. But I feel like Lois is a lot, I thought I like this Lois Lane. I like,
right. I feel like they particularly like her a lot of times in the anime series, because she, like she's like raised by the general. She's
yeah,
always has is able to handle herself and
handled
like
herself a
yeah,
lot better. But I think with Lois Lane is it's almost like she can handle herself. Like I think she doesn't need to be rescued by Superman, but like it's almost like she gets her foot, it's like I'm walking, and then she gets her foot stuck in a
right.
hole.
Well, a lot of times she's like going into super dangerous
Well, no, no,
situations. I
but
guess
she
is
can
what
handle herself up to a point.
because it's like a alien. I don't know, like destroyer of worlds or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. I guess. I would probably say I like this one. Um, I thought the animation was good. I liked this the character the I liked I thought they really wrote it really well. They didn't just do like what they did with the Killing Joke and just say like, "Oh, we need like 2 hours of we need 40 minutes of filler just so we can make this an hour." Like they
Right.
actually took its time to really make it into something.
Right.
So, for a final verdict on our scale from 1 to 10, or if you want to do it this way,
Uh-huh.
um, 1 through 5 was okay. Six through let's say one 1 through 11.
Oh,
Six through 9. One was okay. One. You know, red was terrible. Yellow was okay. Green was good.
okay.
How would you rate this?
I
Did you
would give it a green.
green?
Yeah, I said it's pretty good.
I would give it. I'd give it a. I think maybe a green, maybe like a yellow to the green,
Okay.
just because I feel like they deal. I think with like the. I think they kind of had to add three. I thought. I mean, I think you're right. I think like for me, it's almost like they could have added just a little bit more character development. I mean, I'm not too much, but just
Right.
a tiny little bit, like maybe a little bit more interaction with Lex Luthor and Superman,
Right.
like the
The real
clean cut
Superman.
real Superman
Yeah.
kind of thing. I would have liked to have seen more of like more like the. I know maybe there's another animated movie called The Death of Superman. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But like I kind of was like, okay, there was probably a little bit more depth, but I give it maybe thinking about it after watching it, probably maybe I think an eight
Right.
or nine.
Okay.
I think I'm somewhere around there. I mean, I wasn't, I wasn't as blown away as I was with like, okay, how would you
Okay.
rank this, like as a Superman, um, animated film comparing to or like let's look at Superman in media.
Right.
Um, how would you rank this compared to the animated show, the
I guess just
original
the
movie,
how would
and
you rate this compared to the comic?
the comic?
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like I needed a little bit. I thought it was okay for. I think also you had. I mean, I think the comic had a lot more depth to it because it was also like 30 pages, 30 pages long, and they could really take its time. I feel like the comic was a little bit better
I agree.
than the film,
Right.
but the film did what it. I think the first act of the film was probably the best part of it.
Okay.
The whole Doomsday stuff
Okay.
was probably the best. What's your thoughts? Do you think
I
I
guess
think the Doomsday, but I also look at it as Doomsday was like part one, and then Superman versus Anti-Superman was
right.
part two,
Right.
if you kind of think about it. But I give it probably. I think when I think of it that way, probably a 9. But this is my first sort of viewing of it,
Right.
so I might watch it a couple times and just get more of a
Feel
feel for it. But that's our look at Superman
Doomsday.
Doomsday. Next up is I think we're going to probably do either John Wick Chapter 4. Finally gonna get to it, guys,
Right.
or something small like a mini episode of
Right.
something. But as always, I'm Steve,
I'm Jay.
and look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Man of Steel. Guys, take it easy, and as always, like and subscribe, and see you at the movies. Bye.